Welcome to another episode of SyncRiffs, our weekly podcast where we riff about syncs, pop culture, and the state of the music biz. My name is Charles Levan, President and CEO of Blue Buddha Entertainment. So great to have everybody joining us. Thank you for your comments and feedback. Really appreciate it. And today in the studio, we have a special guest. I'm so honored and really happy to introduce a veteran of the film, music, entertainment space, music supervisor, Laura Webb. Good morning, Laura. Laura, how's it
Good
going?
morning. Good morning. Good. Yeah. Trying to wake up.
Right, we got an overcast day here in California, so extra cup of coffee. But to
hmm
give a proper introduction, you would have known Laura over the years working on in the film and TV space shows like Teen Wolf the movie, Exo Kitty, which is currently airing on Netflix, a great show. Other projects, To All the Boys I've Loved Before franchise, the CW's Kung Fu and The Hills, to name a few. And also, Laura is a proud member of the Guild of Music Supervisors and a two-time GMS Award winner. And with that, 3 times. Yes, that's right. Updating the bio. That's amazing. No, thank you. But would love to get the behind the scenes of how you got into music supervision. I know you're an alum of USC, and
hmm
just kind of want to go back and hear how you first got into the biz and take it from there.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to do something in film. I didn't know that music supervision existed when I was like 18 and looking at colleges, but I knew I wanted to do something for film. And I was living in Germany at the time. I was living abroad with my family. We moved for my dad's job, and I knew I didn't want to be somewhere cold because Munich was really cold. And so my criteria was somewhere warm and somewhere with a film school. So USC was a really good option. And I did not get into the film program because I wasn't one of these kids that had like a, camcorder or like camera.
Mhm.
Um, so not surprising, but I didn't have that access. But I took a lot of classes. You were able to, and I majored in communications and international relations because there was a part of me that maybe wanted to be a diplomat or work for the CIA
Oh, wow.
because I knew several languages. I lived overseas, so I was a double major. But film came calling as I started to do more internships, which USC was great about, and having those connections. So I actually started um, as a agent trainee. I had interned at Talent Agents
Mhm.
and was offered a job when I graduated. And I always was told like that's a really good like master's program because you'll learn who the players are, how things work, and it did. Like I met a lot of people. I knew from doing that I did not want to do music. I'm sorry, I did not want to be an agent. Uh, I was told I was too nice. But anyway, that was an interesting time. I worked for all the cliches that you can imagine of like those kind of bosses. But I developed those thick skin. I definitely
Yeah.
had like an Ari Gold character, and also like from like Ari Gold from Entourage, and definitely I worked for someone very Miranda Priestley from Devil Wears Prada. So
Oh.
um, yes, definitely that. And it took one celebrity calling about their balance bars. Their balance bars were not on there. This is dated, but on their G4, and that like
Oh,
ruined my weekend. And I was like, I cannot live like this. Like that's not how I want to live my life.
mhm.
But so I knew I didn't want to do that anymore. But I sort of was at a crossroads after like I don't know 4 or 5 years of being an assistant, and I was working at a company called The Firm,
Mhm.
um and they manage bands. And so like I was always talking to the music people because I always loved going to shows. I followed bands, like in terms of like what it were breaking, not like following a certain band or anything. But and I always made mixtapes, and that was
Yeah.
always the coveted thing from my friends and my family. Always wanted my mixtapes.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, how do I translate this into a job? And then I started looking and going, wait, music supervision, what is that? And I started learning more, which there is not, when I was started to look, there is not what there is, about the job then. But
Yeah.
I did like a informational with one, like a friend of a friend, knew someone that was like a coordinator. And it's funny because, I won't name the name, but, they were like, I didn't really feel like I was very encouraging to like encourage you to enter the business.
Oh,
And
no.
I was, yeah. And I was like, no, it's okay. Cause I knew I would just forge like, I knew it was my path. Like, I just
Yeah.
wanted to learn.
Yeah.
But there was this, it's called the UTA job list, which I don't even know if it exists anymore. I mean, maybe it does. I don't know. Anyway, but it
Uh-huh.
was like in the agency world or entertainment, that's where all the assistants and like jobs were posted. And there was one for it didn't say who, but it was a music supervisor or a music coordinator two music supervisors. And so I was just like, oh yay, let me and by that time I'd worked for some really high powered people. I was a really good assistant for better or worse. I always had to do the personal, and that was like what people get the most mad about. So
Mhm.
I did not want to be good at it, but for better or worse, I was, because I'm organized. But
Yeah. Very important.
so I just didn't, yeah, but I just didn't, that was not how I wanted to live my life. But like yeah, I couldn't, someone's certain table was booked. Like I can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, so I applied not knowing, and I couldn't even do research, which, I would definitely, yeah, like encourage if someone does like do the research, and, if we talk about it later. But so I go in and like, I would say the two directors that, and like I would say the one film that like definitely wanted me, that like why I got into what I do is Trainspotting, Danny
Ah,
Boyle's Trainspotting, like
yeah, of course.
that, like that soundtrack. I was like,
Iggy
wait,
Pop.
so,
Mhm.
oh yeah, just so, I mean, underworld use, like, I mean,
Right.
it's perfection.
Yeah.
And I really love the way Baz Luhrmann uses music in movies. So
Ye
those are my two like favorite directors. I, I just, yeah, I was like, oh my goodness. And so I go to the interview, I'm waiting in the waiting room, and I
uh-huh.
see those posters on the wall, and I'm like, hold up, wait, well, not Trainspotting, I should say, but
Uh-huh.
anyway, so it was with Laura Wasserman and Darren Higman, who Darren's at Warner Brothers. Laura has since retired.
Mhm.
Um, but she later Laura started working with Danny, I think, after Trainspotting, but she'd been Baz's supervisor from the beginning, like Strictly
Yeah.
Ballroom, where she was an exec at Fox with Strictly
Y
Ballroom and then went independent.
Sure.
So just seeing, and like I loved Great Expectations, that
Mhm.
film,
Mm.
Alfonso Cuarón's, and there's a Pulp song in that movie that's like still to this day, like A Friend Is So Good. So I just basically fangirled in the interview, and because I was just like, wait a second, and Romeo and Juliet, and.
Yeah.
So interestingly, I did not get the job at first, but I stayed in touch. They hired someone else because I like where I was. I did not know how to like burn CDs or rip music, because we had a mailroom for that, right? Because I was
Yeah.
always like on the phones, or like I was, you know, that. So they were like, "Do you know how to do that?" I'm like, "No, but I must ask learner." But I'm sure there was someone who had like more music experience, where I had more like assistant
Mhm.
agency, that
Mm.
entertainment experience. But
Mhm.
they stayed in touch, and I just stayed in touch, and then someone was leaving, and then I got the job. And
Nice.
then that person they did hire, who's no longer in the business, he did not last. And I was
Open the door.
so
Yeah.
yeah. But I
Uh-huh.
think it's just like persistence, like in a gentle way, not like harassing, but
Right.
persistence. I showed my passion.
Yep.
um so I worked with them,
Uh-huh.
and Darren left to go work at Warner Brothers, where he still is, and I stayed and worked with Laura,
Uh-huh.
and that was for about 2 years. But I got to work on films such as Shark Tale. I think that was like the very first film I'd ever worked on, which was the biggest budget to this day I've ever seen.
Wow. Wow.
but that was super fun, and we did one of the triple X with like Ice Cube, and one of those, which was very like a lot of hip hop, which was super fun, and we had a lot of like
Mhm.
original songs created.
Mhm.
And what else? Oh, A Lot Like Love, which is Amanda Peet, and also Meghan Markle is in, which I did not
Oh
realize at the
my
time.
goodness.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Yeah, I saw that after. I was like, oh my goodness. And a couple other films. So then she actually retired.
Uh-huh.
And then I had to like forge my own way and figure out. She's like, "You're ready," and I'm like, "Who's gonna hire me? You know, like
Wow.
who's gonna give me work?" So, um, MTV was looking for coordinators,
Uh-huh.
and especially on the hills, and I actually was doing the rescore first,
Uh-huh.
which is like back then, you know, you had to do like two versions because there was like the evergreen version and you would clear music for maybe only um, just TV, online, and wireless, and then and
Yeah.
then so I worked with Carrie Hughes, who's a dear
Love
friend of mine
Carrie.
to this day.
Still work
Yeah,
with her.
yeah,
Yeah. Carrie's the
yeah,
best.
still,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And so she hired me. So thanks, Carrie. And the music department was like, yeah, you have a lot of experience. Come do this, and then we will promote you. Which I was just like at that point, like, oh my gosh, because I'd been an assistant for so long. I was like, oh my god, am I ever gonna, like
Yeah.
coordinator, assistant? I mean,
Sh-
so and true to their word, they did. So I was the coordinator on the hills for a couple seasons, and then they started giving me some of the unscripted shows, which is a great way to cut your teeth, and really like actually my first credit, yeah, well, one was unpaid, and then but my first like paying music supervisor job was Parental Control. But
uh,
I did 80 episodes,
oh my goodness.
and but I mean, like you
Wow.
really learn how to temp score because you are like,
Yeah.
and I don't think people realize like reality is really hard. It's because
Sh-
you don't have a composer. I mean, some shows do have composers, but often you don't.
mm.
And so you are
Mhm.
finding all that like vocals and all the instrumental underscore, and you really like, I do think like my 10,000 hours, like the Malcolm Gladwell, I think like my 10,000 hours practically was that. I mean, I don't know, like that show,
Yeah.
just because, and you're in there, and the style, like the MTV style back then was like, I'd be in the edit bays and we were close by. So we'd run in, hop in. What do you need? Let's watch a scene together,
Yeah.
like, and I
Yeah.
really like that collaborative side, but I do think that really, lets you kind of like instinctually, just the
Mhm.
more you do it, you just know like something
Mhm.
doesn't
Mhm.
work or it does work, or, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
just getting the feedback from the editors, the
That is
producers.
sure.
Yeah. So
And to,
then that kept, going. And then Teen Wolf came along, and I was really dying to do scripted because I had started in scripted in film. So I was excited to get back to that. And then and I kept doing like independent films along the way. And
mhm.
then yeah, so just I started doing more outside of MTV, and I mean truly being freelance,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then Lindsay Wolfington and I, who we often collaborate with, um, she was working from my house in my dining room, and because we started out as friends anyway, and then she was taking her daughter to a preschool close by, and she's like, "Can I come and work
Oh,
from your house? I'll bring you coffee," which is my love language. So I'm like, "Great." and
so
then
right.
and then we moved to different parts of the town, but and then we kept working together, but we
Mhm.
started doing stuff with Ace, which was awesome, used to be Awesomeness, but now it's Ace. And we started, they'd be like, I think the first thing we did was this project called like MC Squared, which was it's really cute. Yeah, it's like, it's really great for kids and
Mhm.
seeing
Mhm.
smart, cool young ladies, kicking butt and working together. And but I think they were like, we have, I don't know, $5,000, whatever. Anyway, it was like a really
Yeah.
small fee,
Sure.
and for you and the music and the thing. And we're like, well, and you have 2 weeks to do it. And we're like, all
Oh
right,
my.
well, let's just knock this out together, right?
Let me guess. One stop reps.
Yeah, we did I think we just made an overall deal with one library because it was
Ah,
like,
there we go.
yeah. And so, but we have like similar tastes and similar
Uh,
work ethos, and um so it became a natural, but we also we still, which we confuse people to this day, we still we have separate projects too, because we have people that we started out with, or just different
yeah.
relationships. But a lot of time, especially when it's like really heavy lifting stuff, we're like, let's just do it together because
Yeah.
it really helps. And
Divide and
that's,
conquer.
yeah, it
Hmm.
really does. Yeah. So yeah, and then and actually the first two, All the Boys, was sort of a situation where we weren't involved in the while they were filming it, which is sometimes you're brought in at different stages, right?
Uh-huh.
But they had temped the film with a lot of stuff they couldn't afford, and they needed to finish it. And then we came and replaced it all, and but
Yeah.
I think we only had 6 weeks or something, and it was
Wow.
like one of those which the end of the year craziness. It was one of those like finish this before the holidays, which everyone likes to do that, and you're always like your September, October, November, December are always like, oh my god.
Yeah.
But so we did that, and then it blew up, which was great. And we work with Ace, who to this day and do all their films, and Exo Kitty, and
Nice.
um, so we've been doing some really fun stuff with them,
Uh-huh.
and will continue. And we do Monster High, the musical, which is all original music. So we're working on the sequel now. We did the first one last year, and that was super fun. And getting to have all these original songs commissioned and having the cast record was a whole
Oh,
new like muscle. Or
yeah.
maybe we've done like one song here and there for a project, right? Like an original
Mhm.
song, but the whole movie being original music. And
Mm.
that's really fun. And that's the only thing my nieces can watch so far, because they're always like, what's kid appropriate we can watch? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, no.
Right.
But like the Scary Mermaid show, Siren, that was not going to be okay for them. But so they were very excited to have something that they, and that was
Yeah.
part of it too. I was like,
Oh.
I need something for them. So they really like it, and that's good for me.
Yeah, no.
um, yeah, and then let's see. So Exo Kitty, we are working on, or we finished,
Uh-huh.
and that just came out this past weekend, and that
Mhm.
was really fun. And that was a whole new, well, we had done some K-pop in the movies. We'd used some K-pop, but then like being that it was in Korea, really diving into the sound. And I,
Yes.
I really like doing that. Like on Kung Fu, it had such Chinese folklore, and the whole cast had Chinese heritage.
Right.
Um, and that I really like highlighting music like in a locate of the location, and
Mhm.
making it a character and keeping it authentic. Because I don't know, I have like one of my pet peeves is like you go to somewhere, and like when you're watching something, and it's just like they wouldn't listen to that, or like that's
Yes.
not like
Often.
yeah. And like, but I just think I like to go in and deep and do the research, and
Yeah.
I think it should, I don't know, like, yeah.
Hey, let me ask you a quick question, Laura, on that, on Kung Fu and authenticity. And it's a good point. Does the showrunner give you notes in some cases with Kung Fu, or she just left it to you to find those authentic songs? How did that work?
Well, so I came in the middle of the season, and Madonna Wade Reed had started doing it, and she, really had set the tone. But I know that their directive was that they really did want to use uh, artists from China, as well as that had Chinese background, right? Is if and also, like, I mean, we had some other episodes of like there was a K-pop star, and we had a K-pop song created, and
Oh,
but they just asked like if we can try, and one of the showrunners did have a couple ideas,
uh-huh.
and they were really great, and he really had done some research because they'd been developing the show, and all that.
Yeah.
But as we set the tone, and I kept finding more and getting in deep with the contacts that I had forged, we kept getting more. And but
Mhm.
yeah, they were really very collaborative, and that was really great. And I'm sad it got canceled, so that's very sad. But we had a
Yeah.
good run. And that whole community was amazing, and
Mhm.
it was a really fun and special show. So,
Yeah. No, no, it's
yeah, it was just, and it was nice to use music that might maybe, American audiences aren't exposed to as much, which I appreciate.
yeah, no, it's a good through line just to share. For AAPI month, I was interviewing Ruby Ibarra, who worked with composers on Fox's The Cleaning Lady, and we're seeing representation in front and behind the camera as well.
Hmm.
And like you said, more productions that the through line are authentic with the storytelling and the music. So that's really cool there. And then I think, which is a good segue because you kind of just summarized in the last couple of years, is there one show, film, or TV project that hands down you're like, oh my God, this was the best time, the best crew, and music that you got to select for it? What would that be?
Oh my gosh, it's really hard because you get so invested. They're like your children, like, so you're like, I can't pick one, but I mean, there's a lot. Like, I think I think Kung Fu was a really like it just was a really collaborative, great environment to work in. I liked what the story was being told. I liked the music I was finding. I like Exo Kitty because we get to, that was a whole new um well, K-pop's having a moment, but like it just
Yeah.
that was fun to dig in. And I really like we have a movie coming out in September. I mean, I'm a big Anglophile in terms of music, but
You
we
and me
have
both.
yeah, like I mean, and Swedish, like Scandinavian. Anyway, so it's not hard. But we have a movie coming out on Netflix in September called Love at First Sight. And it's
Mm.
funny, then when we worked on it it's been like 2 years, but it had a different name, so Netflix has changed the name, so it's hard I'm like, wait, am I saying it right? But anyway, it was called Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight, which is very long. But it is set in the UK
Oh,
and
cool.
we use all British artists.
Oh,
And it's just a really beautiful film. Like I don't think I ever watched it and didn't cry, but also
oh,
really touching. And it's just a really something special. And we're like, release it because it's so beautiful. I just really love it. And
sure.
we loved our director. Her name was Vanessa Caswell. The cast is amazing. I think the music we found it felt really special. And it was like we zoomed because it was all filmed during COVID, like the height of
Ah,
COVID in the
ah,
UK when their numbers were crazy. And
yeah.
so our director we just met over Zoom, which we all and but we just all kind of collaboratively, like she just really listened to us, which I mean it's fine, usually on projects, like obviously they have their vision and stuff, but it's really nice when you're seen and heard in life and in
Yes.
your job. And she just really did, and other projects do, not to say, but she just was like we just so synced up like on things. And
Yeah.
so I think we got several of the songs that we even mentioned in our first like brainstorming meeting all ended up in the film, and they're like really special. And it just was like I don't know, that one holds a special place. I love, Teen Wolf was an amazing journey.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like you get invested, so it's really hard to say like what's your favorite. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
no, and shout out and kudos to you and Lindsay because I think it was 2 to 3 Bad Hats tracks for. So were those, and I was curious because it was sort of those you got Lindsay had the music and you guys had it from way back. Was it one of those things where it just fit like a glove, or was it temped in, or it just kind of depends from song
yeah,
to song?
I mean, yeah. So in like the To All the Boys movies, did we use them in the Love at First Sight? I don't know.
No,
In To All the Boys, yeah.
it's all the
Or
boys. Yeah.
well, yeah. So Ace specifically, we helped temp the film with score too, but their directive and like our director Michael Femignari on those films, um, he likes to use bands as like temp score, like instrumentals, and our editors. So, where we send score, but they just don't the like traditional sounding score. I think it's just because it's a young, like the films are geared towards young adult. It doesn't have to be young adult. Like I enjoy, I enjoy them. But so those, and I think the production was really unique and it was quirky. So we attempted, and those were from our temping of like, and that was instead of score, we use a lot of instrumentals. So which
Okay.
yeah. So because like we sent a lot of score over, and
Hmm. Hmm.
that just didn't feel their vibe, and so um we went with a lot of bands instrumentals.
No, amazing. It
Yeah,
worked. It
yeah.
worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And it's funny because I still send, like, especially on Ace Films when we were starting a new film and like, here's some temp score ideas. Like, those are like Bad Hats is our like, all right, let's go to it. They
Right.
were.
Yeah, big time, big time. It's no, and it's cool to see and to kind of thread that needle because when you're talking about the MTV reality shows when it was instrumental underscore, safe to say, like with that, you have your set libraries, music libraries that they have the sound, it fits, and you can just plug and play.
Yeah. Well, but back in the day, I don't know if they still do that. But back early 2000s, we actually did use a lot of bands instrumentals, like on Parental
Ah,
Control and stuff.
okay.
Or we did, yeah. So instrumentals worked really well too, and you use library, but it was a mix of both actually. So,
Right.
because there's something, you know, uh, like score is great, and especially when it's made custom, but there's also just like this feel in some like band songs and different, right,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's good to mix both, I
Absolutely.
find.
Yeah, no. And something I always wanted to ask Laura, because I can only imagine, correct, when you're between, juggling the budget, juggling clearance, and the creative, how much time, forward planning, you've got to be listening to stuff so that oh my God, I can turn to this. So in your given day, that ratio of you're just always continuing to listen to tracks just to have them in your mind. I mean, it's
Yeah, I used to be so much better. Like before the pandemic, I always, like when I was driving, when I was cleaning, I always had this like listening cue, and I was so good at it. And then I don't know, the COVID hit, and I just like I discovered, because I had downtime, so I started
yeah.
discovering like podcasts, because I was like, I have to listen all the time, and audiobooks and stuff, and I just like, so I'm not as good anymore. I mean, I have to because it's my job and stuff, but
Sure.
I don't as I'm not as on top as I used to be. Like I'm like, my like listening queue. I think wait, I'll tell you what it is. Like
Oh,
what I should listen to,
uh,
just as like, okay, uh yeah, it's 35,000 songs, which is not going to happen. But yeah,
goodness.
I mean, yeah. Um, but I used to be really good at that, and I would like, and I still, I mean, I'd listen, and what I used to do, and I still do, just not the ambitiousness of before. But
Mhm,
I
mhm,
have
mhm.
playlists going, and I just keep feeding those. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a really great sexy song. This would be great for a makeout moment. Oh, this is a really cool um like bar song, or like,
Mhm,
oh, for a Reservoir Dogs like strut moment or something,
mhm.
so I will go and do that, and I always defer to those playlists that I've like filtered myself, because it's through my filter.
Yeah.
But then if I'm stuck on something, or I just feel like, oh my gosh, I've exhausted all my options, and I will send briefs out to
Mm,
people, because or like when I started kung fu, I did not have a plethora of songs in Mandarin or Cantonese. So
right.
though, that's what's so great, to rely on you guys
Mhm, mhm.
um for those things, because you have all this access, and it's like great, so it's kind of a little bit of both. But yeah, I mean, I try to listen. It doesn't happen as much, but I mean,
Mhm.
and then it's the listening for certain projects, and then, or if I'm listening for pleasure as much, probably just not as much anymore, but that's okay.
Sure. No, no, I'm with you. And it's safe to say, correct. And it's sort of like, in order for you to curate your own playlist, when you get emails from managers, labels, sync agents, you keep those emails. And then, so if I brand my email a Scandinavian pop,
Yeah.
then you got to download it, then you got to transfer it to your disco or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's a two-step process.
Yeah. 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 And it's so funny, because I tease Lindsay, because like she has like, I don't know, 30,000 unread emails. And I'm like, that gives me anxiety, but she never deletes emails, where I have like, I just don't, but she'll go back and look, and she's like, I found this in an email from 2017. I'm like, well,
Oh
okay,
my goodness.
because she's really good about doing that with her email, where I'm like, I
Yeah.
just try to do my keywords, but then keywords are great, because when you are stuck on something, or something really hyper focused,
Right.
um, I think that is a good way to help you kind of spark something,
Hmm.
and then you'll be like, oh right, and then there was this band that sounds like this, or oh, they
Yeah.
like, you know they want Led Zeppelin. Oh, Greta Van Fleet sounds like Led Zeppelin. Like just that kind of
Yeah.
like it. it's, yeah, someone was like, oh, is it like Beautiful Mind where you're like, da, da, da? I'm like, I guess, although I wouldn't say, I don't know that it's like genius level by any, I don't think, but
Right, right. No, it's fascinating because, I was talking with somebody else on an episode, and we're talking about, when we both started out, this was pre-Spotify, pre-SoundCloud. It's just iTunes is how we curated everything. And then now, sometimes,
I
depending
know.
who you speak with, showrunners. So here's a question: with showrunners, will they come to you and say, "Hey, I have my playlist. Clear these," and then it's up to you to educate them. Well, this one is a nightmare, or it's going to be too much, and so,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yes. And I mean, and it was funny because like pre Spotify too, like my favorite was like the stuff on YouTube where you're like, oh, where'd that come from? Don't do that.
Right.
Stay off, or like, what's the DJ site that's like, that DJs pull stuff? Oh, why am I blanking on it?
I know what
It'll
you're
come
talking
to me
about.
later. But yeah, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, well, that's not like, I don't know that those are even clearable, like that's the thing when, but like if they say, I want something like this, be like, all right, listen, that's not within your budget, but here are some
Mhm,
options that
mhm,
are.
mhm.
Um, but yes, I think I would almost say almost more because I mean, it's great that so much is available, right? Because I mean, I started when, um, you just had a certain number of CDs and there's so many more companies now where I mean,
Right.
there just were, I didn't feel like there was as many companies that did it. It was like kind of manageable.
Yeah.
And it was just the CDs were sent to you and you just like rip them in and, that kind of thing.
Right.
Now it's like, which is also exciting because all these artists, the way you make music and it's been
Mhm,
so undemocratized, I guess,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
Or
mhm,
de-democratized, I don't know.
mhm, mhm.
But and so, but there is so much that it is so overwhelming because you're like, I like to know everything, and it's I've let that go. And
Yeah.
TikTok, and it's just like,
Right.
I mean, all these like all the labels and publishers, they're like just finding that, artists off TikTok. And it's
Mhm.
just so hard to stay on top of it when we have stuff coming in too. But I try to keep my ear open, like as much as you can and just like be a sponge and be like, oh, what's this? What's that?
Mhm,
But
mhm.
I mean, you just have to like go with it and be like I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah. No. I mean, and that's, not to mention, God forbid, like you said, or where if there's a snag or a snafu, we're like, oh, someone, they say, oh, it's all one stop wrap. You're like, oh, wait, there's one more writer and they're an admin by Cobalt, but they didn't know that. They didn't tell you. Then it's a nightmare and you have to get in the mix. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like this version just not clearable, or like there's samples and yeah, just all those things that
Mhm.
um I think why the argument of like why, I think a lot of people think it's a job they can do because they have good taste in music, and sure, that's part of it. But it's knowing like we really are deferred. I think feel like more and more legal lawyers come to us because they're like, what have you done? And they're
Right.
deferring to us because we have such the niche expertise, right?
Mhm.
Where, and we know like, no, that won't clear for, like those things. And we know like the intricacies of of how you to clear it correctly so that you don't get sued, and that
Mhm.
and I think that's why our job is important, although I feel like a lot of people feel like they can do it. There is a lot of legal and paperwork um, and expertise in that, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And I would say almost like that is, I would say like I feel like that's really 80% of the job, and the listening is maybe 20, right? But and like that part where, I mean, there's some days I don't listen to any music because I'm on calls, we're spotting episodes where,
Mhm.
in mixes, all that, right? And you're working on you're chasing down clearances
Mhm.
and drafting it all, like all that
Mhm.
is very
Mhm.
time consuming. Um, so, to anyone in this, you have to be very good at grids and paperwork and really reading the fine print. I would say
Mhm.
it's a really big, big. Yeah.
No, it's multiple hat wearings, like you said, being organized, and also the social aspect of managing the expectations. You have the studios, you have the showrunners, the labels, everyone's you're liaising, connecting with, and making sure
Hmm.
everyone's happy with the end product, don't go over budget and deadline. So I think that is a good segue, Laura, if you want to talk about correct as far as music supervisors go. As far as forming a union and the
Hmm.
benefits of that. And yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's very pressing, especially as we're currently as the Writers Guild are currently striking, and it does affect everything because and it does feel very I feel like we're in the like back COVID too, and with things shutting down, and it's feeling a little bit like that, but we're still waiting and seeing and being flexible, and
Mhm.
but it just, I think the need to unionize really became, we've always needed it, but it became very abundantly clear during COVID because we had zero protections
Mm.
for some of us that have been doing this for like a really long time. um it's almost getting harder, and the expectations are more, um but the pay has not, we've not seen any incremental improvements, right? And
Mhm.
like, I am an independent supervisor, it's my own company. So I get my own insurance through the marketplace, which, thank God for that, because they were before pre Obamacare. Like, I think I applied for insurance and I was, I don't know, like 26 or something, and I got denied. I had no pre-existing conditions and I just
Wow.
like couldn't even get insurance, right? And you
Yeah.
know, so thankfully we have marketplace. But
Mhm.
the one of the big things is that all our other colleagues on the crew,
Mhm.
they have those rights. They have pension, they have health care, they have payment protection, and
Mm.
like workplace protections where we have nothing, right?
Wow.
And that we just really want what everybody else is.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
insurance is great, and that would be wonderful. And also, like, we invoice for projects, and it takes months, like our payment of like when we get paid. And that is something we've partnered with IATSE,
Mhm.
and IATSE would be able to tell this production, like, you don't get to work with anybody from the film crew if you don't pay these people, right? And
Mhm.
right now it's just sort of like, oh, can you pay me? Like, I am owed
Mhm.
something from 5 months ago. I still haven't been paid, and it's just
Mm.
like, that becomes a full-time job, like following up on that and being like, with the strike right now, and I haven't been paid in 5 months. And thankfully I am working on things, but I haven't been
Yeah.
paid since March, and
Oof.
that's the thing, like, because I've been doing this so long, you always have to have that umbrella and put money aside and cushion for that. But just knowing that you got paid timely, like, that would be
Yeah.
a game changer.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so, and pension, like, there is
Mhm.
no retirement plan, other
Mm.
than you saving for yourself, and that other people have that.
Mhm.
Um, we just really want the same. And a couple of us have gone to, and so, switching with like what the writers are striking for right now, we're totally, I mean, that is the thing. Like, we have less episodes, but the amount of time that we work on these projects hasn't diminished. We don't get paid weekly, we're paid per project. So
Mm.
we might be on things for 2 years, right? And then,
Wow.
like, oh, and then we have to wait 5 months to get paid for when we invoice for it, right?
Right.
So it's just getting harder, um and without like any protections, right? And so,
Yeah.
we're totally in support of I would say all of us are in support of what the writers are asking for, because that hopefully trickles down and helps all of us,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And uh, actually, a group are going this morning, I think, to one of, I think they're going to Warner Brothers this morning, but I couldn't go because we're doing this. But
Yeah.
I went out I picketed, I think like 2 weeks ago, and I plan to do more once work slows down inevitably because of the strike. But
Yeah.
uh, and it felt really great to be there and be part. And they were very thankful to us.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't even know that we don't have a union. And that's the thing.
Wow.
Like, I'm out there talking with some of the writers, and they're like, "Wait, what? You guys don't have a union?" And we're like, "No, we have nothing." And then
Wow.
when we explain, I mean, because it breaks down to, because music supervisors often, it depends when you're hired, but
Mhm.
usually if they want it done right, you should be brought in pre-production, and you read
Mhm.
the scripts, because even when you read the scripts, there could be on-camera moments or visual vocals. Like, if you know this, but just for your audience, like if there's like lyrics that are spoken because maybe someone quotes a Beatles song or something, that has to be cleared. So we go through all that, and so we're on from pre-production, production, post-production, way
Wow.
past, because we're doing all the licensing. So we're on, other than the showrunners, we're on the show for the longest, but make, like, when you do that cumulatively, I know I often make less than PAs, and
Wow.
that's not okay. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, just that at the level of that, we've been doing it this long, PAs work so hard and are the glue that keep everything. So that's not, I'm
Right.
trying to diminish by them, because what
Sure.
they do is really important too. But you get, like, we're almost like lawyers, although I did not go to law, like we didn't go, some people have gone to law school, but
Mhm,
and
mhm.
they get to pay they bill hourly or
Wow.
something. So it's just like, we just want to be treated, well, we want respect and recognition for what our job is, but also
Mhm,
just the same protections as everyone else. So
mhm, mhm.
um we are currently waiting. The latest is, well, we applied, we had everyone sign, and we had a super majority of card signers of music supervisors, which was great. Everyone said yes, we want a union. um, we appealed to the AMPTP, which is who the writers are dealing with too, which is the governing body. It's the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Projects, I think,
Mhm,
for television productions. And
mhm.
that's the governing body for all the studios. And we appealed to them and said, hey, look, they denied us, which is not shocking. They're currently, dealing with SAG, well, going about to be dealing with SAG and Warner,
Mhm.
the Writers Guild. So then we appealed to Netflix, because they employ the most music supervisors, and they
Uh-huh.
denied us.
Mm.
And so we uh, testified, or a group of supervisors testified, and with IATSE, who's
Mhm, mhm.
helping shepherd us, we compiled a bunch of evidence, and we have presented that to the NLRB, which is the National Labor Relations Board, and Netflix presented their side, and we presented our side, and it's currently under review. But the
Mhm.
NLRB is like for the whole country, and I think there's, I don't know how many people there, like let's say 20, right? And so it's like,
Yeah.
but we have been told they are very pro-union, so fingers crossed.
Yeah.
They are Biden appointees, which yay, who
Mhm,
is
mhm.
also a proponent of unions.
Mhm.
And so we're waiting for that. And that was back in December. So we'll see, but it could come down anytime. And then hopefully we can be granted, if they rule in our favor, then we do have the right to unionize. But it's still another long process, and it'll
Yeah.
be, it's and there's been some really dedicated individuals who really have been um driving this, and it's great. And I don't know, I feel like all this, like I've just been saying, and it's kind of like, a high tide rises all ships, and it's just like, how do we make things better for all of us? Like, yes, I want something better for me, I want it for everyone, right? And then
Mhm, mhm.
I think there would be a lot of pros to it.
No,
I'm very pro union, so
no,
yeah.
100%. I mean, I think, incorrect. I think I saw it, and I can post it in the link. There's a petition folks can sign that
Yes.
say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the, more support. Like, I think so
Mhm.
many people don't, and we had a really great social media blitz. I mean, it's still out there, but we are in support of writers and trying to, like,
Yeah.
but I think a lot of people don't realize, and just like your support, that people's support, and being vocal, and it's going to be a long slog, but
Mhm, mhm.
getting everyone's support is great. So yeah, and it felt really nice, I will say, like, where all the writers were really, like, when I went picketing, and I heard feedback from other people that they, like, the writers were so appreciative. They
Mm.
were like, we got you, and it's your time, and it just felt like we really are all in this together. And
Mhm, mhm.
and it's the time to, want better for everyone. So,
Yeah, no, and I think the biggest takeaway, Laura, is, for whether it's independent artists or agents, you know, I've been doing this for a minute as well, and it's really respecting what you guys do. And, you know, say someone meets you on the street, and once they find out what you do, they're like, "Oh, I'm in a band. Here's my music," without knowing, like, do you need this music? And then there's
yeah.
clearance, and you're inundated. You have there's music coming. I think it was PJ Bloom wrote the forward for a you know getting in the mind of a music soup that Amanda Creed Thomas wrote, and he was basically saying,
Mhm.
I think he was somewhere at a barber shop, and someone knew who he was, and they said, "Hey, PJ, here's my music," and he's like, "I'm getting my hair cut. What's going on?" And
For the job. So,
so I think absolutely. That's a good segue to the closing question I always like to ask our guests is, one piece of advice that you would give to whether it's an artist, someone looking to get into the sync space, one key takeaway. What would that be?
yeah, I mean, I think like, well, getting into the business or like getting your music placed, kind of. Is that what you're saying? Or like,
Yeah, they're an indie band. They're not working. They want to try the route of either working with a sync agent or
oh, okay,
approaching
yeah.
a music soup. Yeah, getting their songs
Yeah,
placed.
I mean, I would definitely recommend them getting with someone like yourself and the great pitching companies. I mean, you don't have to the whole model of signing with a major label and all that. I don't think you have to do that anymore. People can still own
Mhm.
their music but have sync and pitching companies. And I think that's a really great, especially as you're starting out. So I speak volumes to what you guys do and how it's so beneficial because you help us vet that. And,
Right.
like if they have samples, there's a writer that's, since deceased and then they never, cleared that part or, things
Mhm.
like that. And like it makes our job easier when we can use you all. And so
Yeah.
I tell people often, like, do your research and look for companies or, um, that shows that you want. And the thing is also it's not that I won't use any independent artists. I do,
Sure.
um, because that's okay too.
Mhm.
But for them, and I'm sure many of your guests will say if you're interviewing other supervisors, but if you are reaching out to us, like
Mhm.
let's say you are watching a show and you're like, oh wow, my music would really, I feel like that feels the vibe, or you're really passionate or something, you know, um, like fine, look on IMDb, see who works on
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
think a lot of our information's out there. And so you could just say like, I really like this. I see that you used X, Y, and Z. I
Mhm.
feel, sort of that's my sound. But I often get a lot of emails that are just like, I found you on IMDb, and it's like, okay, well, great, gold star, like that. I'm supposed to be like, great. I mean,
Right.
it's good they looked me up, but
Yeah.
I think taking it a step further and yeah, and like having downloadable music because like streaming
Mhm.
doesn't really help us. But I mean, the thing is you never know. I might be looking, like a Moroccan hip hop producer may have like hit me up and I needed it this week or
Mhm.
something. And you look
Mhm.
in your old emails, or I'll ask Lindsay to
Yeah.
for 2016 emails or something. But yeah, but so I would just say like, yeah, do the research.
Mhm.
I would speak very highly of working with sync agents, but do your due diligence on that
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
Because there are companies out there that want to own all your publishing and
Mhm.
all these things. But
Mhm. Mhm.
I would say, yeah, like find us or find you all. It's the
Yeah.
best
No.
advice. And
Absolutely.
if we can't get back to you on our end, like, I mean, we just, there's just so much. It's just, yeah,
Yeah.
we can't get back to everybody because if we're,
Right.
it, or like, can you, sometimes you get like, can you give me feedback? And it's like, if I gave feedback to everyone,
Yeah.
I would never have time to even do the job that
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So it's
uh,
not that, and it could work, you never know, but just,
mhm. Mhm.
you'll hear from us if it works.
Exactly. No, no, well said. And then the biggest thing, because I get this, and I'm sure you get it, Laura, too, is, when folks see a show currently airing, and then I'm like, it's already in the can. If you see it airing, it's put to bed. They don't need music
Yeah.
for it. It's so
Yeah.
yeah.
I know. And it is. Honestly, it's harder now because like before with like broadcast television, there was a TV season, right? And you knew like in the summer, that's probably, or like there's a break and then, oh, you're gearing up in like, August, September or something. And now it's so hard. And like, Exo Kitty, we finished it back last year
Mm-hmm.
and it's now being released. Or like this movie, Love at First Sight, we finished it last year. So
Yeah.
it's really hard. And I know that that's harder on their end when I'm saying like, do the research. But
Right.
yeah, so I guess really like check trades,
Yeah.
like Deadline's great, Hollywood Reporter, Variety,
Mhm.
IMDb Pro is good, although it's not always, they don't always update like, what's in pre-production versus
Mhm.
production, but yeah, and I know it's hard to track it all, but that's kind of, I don't know what you have to do.
Yeah, yeah. And to on the final, to end it on a cool creative note, what's in your listening queue right now? Is there a band that you just came across, whether from a major label or that you're like, oh my God, Charles, you got to check this
Well,
band out?
there's one, but I'm like, some of it I like to like, that one might not want to say yet because I
Okay,
want to be like the first to use it, But
sure,
let's see. Hold on. I'm pulling up. Yeah.
sure.
Um hmm, I know. I'm like, I don't want to say that one yet.
We'll save that for.
But I will say, but it's because it's also like all things Anglophile. I did hear the new Everything But the Girl, and there's some really good songs. Have you listened yet?
Love it. Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
following. I reached funny
Yeah.
story is because way back, I'm all in a Massive Attack and Tracy Thorn and
Oh.
Ben. I
Oh,
reached
yeah.
out to
Oh.
her. I emailed them like, "Do you have a sync agent?" And then someone, at least they wrote back, "We have a full team." I'm like, I love
Yeah,
them.
it's
Yeah,
so good. And just
so good.
like, the production's still so relevant and like,
Hmm.
it's so good. And it's funny because well, Lindsay and I are working on the Stars show and it's like very sexy psychological thriller and there's like a lot of sex in it. And they're always like, what's the Portishead Massive Attack of today? And we're like,
Right.
I mean, there are, but it's just, there's nothing like that.
Yes.
Like, which would, I mean, I would be all over that. But,
Uh-huh.
and then it's funny because that one we're going to be going down soon because of the strike because we've been working in post, but we need to shoot more episodes and we can't. But I'm like, when we get back up, I'm like, ooh, there's new Everything But the Girl.
Yeah. Right.
So that one I was very excited about.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, the one I just don't want to say yet because I'm
Sure.
like, sometimes I have my little champion, but it is a male. He's a singer-songwriter, and he has music that makes me like just cry, and it's really beautiful.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll have you on on a part 2, and then we'll do the
Yeah.
reveal then.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, there's a lot out there, and like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, I don't even, because I'm like, what have I done for fun? Nothing. I don't know. I'm like, sometimes when you ask that, it's like the most like, I don't
I
know.
know, I
Just,
know.
yeah.
So
But I know. I don't know.
no worries, no worries. A wealth of info. Time flies by, and you know the through line is some really really great insights on
Oh, thank you.
your world as a music supervisor, and it's ever changing. And like you said, it's staying on top of everything as an artist, or if you're looking to get into the space. But thank you so much, Laura. I can thank you more so much, and really appreciate you. And yeah, it was a great chat. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and smash that like button, smash that notification. We're going to have other great music supers and composer editors in the future, and we'll catch you on next time at SyncRiffs. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Go.